My name's Wendy. I'm from Sunflower Publishing, and I'd like to introduce you to my guest this morning, a lovely gentleman called Graham Hofmann, um, published author. Graham has a really interesting story to tell, and he's going to share that with us this morning. He purchased a house in Umbria some years ago, and he has written a book about his life in Italy and his life as an expat. I've read the book and I have done a review of the book, which is on my website. So we're going to talk about his book this morning because it's quite fascinating. It's not just an account of life as an expat. Graham tries to give you the complete experience of the real Dolce Vita. It's a comprehensive and entertaining travel guide. It's a well-researched historical account of Italy. It delivers passion, it delivers humor, it delivers enthusiasm, and ultimately it delivers acceptance. Let's find a little bit more about this book from Graham. So let's see if he's in the waiting room. One always hopes that there is someone on the other side, as she said, in the words of Adele. So we're just going to connect with Graham now. Just bear with me. Good morning, Graham. I can't hear you. Unmute. You need to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Got you.
No, I've lost you.
Oh, no.
Oh, crikey.
The wonders, I can hear you and I can see you. The wonders of technology. Okay, don't worry. I am here, really.
Okay, I can see you. I can see you again now.
I'm here in the UK. In a very hot and sweaty office, so water at the ready. Normally it's wine, Graham, but we're doing this in the morning, so I better not drink too much wine. So
it's exactly the same with me. I've got the door open to the balcony, and there are kids playing football on the street outside.
Right.
And then I've got rather than wine, a cup of obviously Yorkshire tea by my side. Yeah.
I mean, we would both be normally speaking from Italy, but I've rushed home just to be with family during a few weeks of the summer holidays. But anyway, it's nice to meet you. Our paths have crossed. I think they've intertwined the branches of social media. And I'd like to talk to everyone this morning. I'd like you to talk to everyone this morning about the book, Lorenzo's Fest. Now, normally at this point, I produce my book and say, here's the book, but I've left my book in Italy.
I've got one here.
I've just got I was going to say, I've just got the cover on my iPad here. I was playing around with different covers, and I put it, first of all, I had the book on a swing, and then I had it on a beautiful wooden tray, and then I kind of settled for sunflowers in the end.
All right, looks good. Yeah.
But yeah, it looks quite nice. I just thought sunflowers, Italy. So there's the book. So let's go back to the beginning. You purchased a house in Umbria.
I did, yeah. I visited Italy for the very first time back in 2005. I'd been to Italy once for a day trip from the former Yugoslavia to Venice.
Okay.
But other than that, I knew very little or next to nothing about Italy. So I visited Italy for 3 weeks in 2005, toured around the country, and by pure accident stumbled across Umbria, and even more so stumbled across Gubbio, and just fell in love with this medieval town, city. And I've been sort of contemplating the possibility of buying a house somewhere abroad for a number of years, from watching things on British TV, Homes in the Sun and so forth, but never really imagining that you can actually buy these properties in such wonderful places for the prices they were offering. Anyway, stumbled across Gubbio, and just fell in love with the town. Went into a few estate agents. One didn't particularly seem all that interested, which was a little bit worrying. And then went to another one, and she showed me a couple of houses, and eventually took me out to the one that I bought. In the small, tiny hamlet of Casacolli, near Copolumbo, about 7 miles from Gubbio, so up in the mountains and forest and so on. But my Italian was just from rote.
Non-existent at that
Non-existent, just using a tiny phrase book in my back pocket.
Okay.
And then spent 3 days, do I actually take this gamble or not? Because you hear of all sorts of stories about people buying properties and they belong to 3 brothers and 2 want to sell and 1 doesn't. You end up with grandma living in the attic and you never realised she was a permanent
She's still
and so on and so forth. So I spent 3 days, do I really do this or not? And then eventually decided to take the plunge, totally naively, because I didn't really understand what I was doing. On the assumption, again, this is incredibly naive, on the assumption, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll just simply sell the property. Not realizing at the time that to sell an Italian property is incredibly difficult, as you'll know, or anybody else who lives in Italy will know it's difficult to sell. But anyway, I took the gamble, and it turned out to be the best gamble I've ever taken, because my Italian neighbours were brilliant from the start and basically adopted me as this strange Englishman who decided to buy a property that no Italians would probably touch. They still don't really understand why I bought it, because they don't have the same dream that the Brits have about living in such places.
Yeah.
So now they've got used to that, accepted that I'm there, but they still don't really understand why I bought it. But as I say, it's the best gamble I ever took. They're welcome with open arms. The little hamlet of Casacolli has about 10 houses, and then the village of Copolumbo is nestled on its own hill to the back of my house, and then surrounded by the higher mountains of the Apennines and oak forests and the beauties of Umbria. And so I had the house for a number of years as a holiday home, but only had the time to visit there when I wasn't working. I then eventually retired and set up my own business within education, still doing similar things I'd done when I was employed in education. And then eventually decided, why am I doing this? Why am I living part of the time in the UK and part of the time over there? So I eventually informed my 2 daughters that I was going to abandon them and move out to live in Umbria in Italy, which I did.
And how was that received?
No, really well. I mean, now that I'm a grandparent, that's slightly changed the whole dynamics of things. And my younger daughter's also expecting her first child in January.
Okay.
So that's changed my thinking about how long I'll spend there and how long I'll spend over in the UK. So basically, I'll be moving backwards and forwards more often than I used to. But so I guess I would say I've got 2 homes.
Yeah.
One in Yorkshire and one in Umbria, and I enjoy both equally, really. But the thing that has made my life in Umbria so special are my Italian friends and my Italian neighbours, who've totally welcomed me with open arms, helped me in all sorts of different ways over the 10 or 12 or more years that I've had the house. Many of the times not really understanding what I was asking of them, because my Italian is still not too brilliant, still broken, but just totally adopted me. And now I feel very much part of the community in Copolumbo. I'm part of the local associations. I'm part of Gubbio Runners, an athletics club. I'm a member of the Copolumbo archery team. I'm terrible at archery, but I'm a member of the team, and they're far better than me. But so yes, life is good. Very good.
I mentioned in my introduction, because I have done a review of the book, and I mentioned lots of things that we'll go into, but one of the things that is important is ultimate acceptance.
Yeah.
And I think that certainly comes across in the book, that if you don't get that level of acceptance, it it's not that it makes life difficult for you, but when you get that level of acceptance in Italy, it's not like just moving into a little village in England, is it, where neighbors just say, is everything okay? This is total immersion. When you get acceptance in Italy, they take you in as their own, don't they, as a member of their family. So when I say acceptance, that's exactly what I mean. It's not just, well, he's the Englishman, well, you know, we just give him the time of day and a nod. It's total acceptance, really, as a family member.
Absolutely, and that's very much how I feel now. Yeah, I mean that really came about almost from the beginning. When I first bought the home, and you've read the book, so I went out to Italy to actually carry the bag of money, literally a bag of money, in a carrier
like we did in those days,
to the estate agent and then to the solicitor and so on. I got absolutely no idea how the Italians might accept me.
Oh.
I thought this could be similar to, say, for example, an English person buying a house in North Wales, where it may not be all acceptable because obviously you're pushing up house prices and so on and so forth. So really, I got no idea. Moved in, actually got the keys for the house in the winter, so it was freezing cold. Didn't see any neighbours because, like everywhere, they were locked indoors because it was cold. But basically pushed a Christmas card through all the letterboxes and said, this time, Merry Christmas, I'm your new English neighbour, and so forth. And that was it. So I didn't actually see anybody at all. So I still got no idea how I might be accepted. I then returned to the house in the Easter and spoke to my neighbours for the first time. Or I tried to speak to my neighbours for the first time because very few of them speak English. So I was using my very poor Italian. And straight away, I was invited for coffee, I was invited for lunch, I was invited for dinners. And any help that I needed, they were willing to give. Sorry?
Did that surprise you? And I know you're very friendly up there in Yorkshire, but
you know, I mean, I've never lived in a small, tiny village in the UK, so it may be similar. I've got no real idea.
Not like it is in Italy, I don't think. No.
Sorry?
Not like it is in Italy, where they would bring you food, because I don't think you'd get that so much in England, because really, would you? But in Italy, the food, it's like breaking bread with you. You are our neighbor, we want to break bread with you, and we want to give you food. If we give you food, we're accepting you. It's, you know, food in Italy, that's kind of hand in hand, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, what I didn't realise when I first saw the house, I remember one of my neighbours still drives past, but most mornings if he drove past, if I was in the garden, he would stop in his car and ask if I wanted to go for a coffee in the local bar in the village. So literally, we would jump in his car. It's a 3-minute drive down to the village, 5 minutes having a coffee, 3 minutes back up, and that's the whole thing over and done with. And then early on in my ownership of the house, he asked if I wanted to join him and his wife for a drink at the local festival. So as a Brit, I automatically assume a drink means a few beers or a glass of wine and so on, because that's what Brits would mean. So I eventually find them at the festival, and we go over and get an espresso, which he buys and gives me this. We have an espresso, and that's it. That's the drink. Well, to a Brit, this is what? That's it? Yes. So that's it.
When do I get
then I realised that the purchase, or somebody buying you an espresso, is that welcome, you're part of us, you're part of the community, you're our friend, etc., etc. Just the same as in the UK, you take them to the pub and buy them a few pints and so on. It's very much a similar sort of relationship that's going on. Yeah.
I mean, when we bought our first house, the minute that we'd all finished at the notary, the solicitor, if you like, to do the deed, everybody went to the bar to have a coffee. You know, I would have thought, well, don't we crack open the champagne? No, it was an espresso. And that's what you have to celebrate. So that's, I know. Anyway, so moving on from the house, how did the process for, I know, I'll write a book about it. Talk us through the process of how you got to the book.
Right. I started keeping notes from more or less when I bought the house.
Like a diary?
Yeah, I'd sort of a
Yeah.
diary, but just scribble down notes, things that
Okay.
might crop up, incidents, anecdotes, all sorts of things, and just kept notes. So sort of a diary, but not a planned out diary of each day.
Okay.
And with this vague notion that one day I may write a book, and then started to write it for about 3 or 4 years. I kept writing little bits, and then stopped because I just thought, will anybody actually really be interested in this? I've got no idea how people might receive my writing, and I had a sort of a crisis of confidence, I suppose, that this will be any good. So I stopped. The big mistake I made, I also stopped jotting down notes.
Oh, right.
So then I had to think back about little anecdotes and little experiences. Yeah, so that was a big mistake.
Right.
And basically, it was my 2 daughters who kept saying to me, Dad, when are you going to finish writing that book? And eventually, so they said to me, look, write it. If it's not well received, if it flops, if it's not good, at least you know you've done it, rather than in some future date,
Yeah.
thinking, I wonder what that would have been like if I'd written the book.
Absolutely.
So
No,
it's down to my 2 daughters encouraging me, I suppose, and pressurizing me into writing the book. So then I got down to it properly and started writing, and probably took maybe 18 months really to put it all together. And then I had friends in the UK, graphic designers. That's their company, that's their business. So they actually put the whole thing in book form and did the front covers and so on and so forth.
I love the cover.
Sorry?
I love the cover.
Oh, thank you. I mean,
I
that's
love the cover. It and the title. Talk us through the title, Graham.
right.
Did you get to
That's.
that?
I mean, you know, as a writer and a publisher, and you've read many of the books and spoken to many writers. It's very much an organic process, an ongoing process, and things change all the time. And you think you've finished. I sort of relate it to. I've never been an artist, but I would imagine an artist keeps. I'll just touch a little bit here. I'll just put a little bit there.
Yeah.
Eventually, they've got to decide. That's it. It's done. I've finished. And then they go back and do a little bit more. And it's a bit like that when you're writing a book. So the title was a different title altogether until maybe a few weeks before it actually eventually went to be printed and published. And it was an incident that occurred, a fairly a simple incident occurred in the village. And it was friends in the UK that had been over to stay with me. And they said, that should be your title, Lorenzo's Vest. I thought, really? Well, this really just did, but it's actually been really, really good, because most people have been intrigued as to know what is this all about? What's this about Lorenzo's Vest? So it's a far better title than the one I had previously. But obviously, I can't let you know why it's called Lorenzo's Vest. We'll leave
have
it.
to buy the book.
We'll leave it to find out when they read the book. Yeah,
buy the book and read it. I thought it was absolutely fascinating. I'm someone that a target, your target market is so wide. It's not just people thinking, oh, well, I'd like to do the same, so I'll buy the book and read it and get some advice on that. There is such a huge demand for books set in Italy, for books about Italy. And this one is your personal experience. You just don't get any more authentic than that. The highs, the lows. And, I like I say, I know I said in my, in my review, it's whether you want how-to guide or you're a traveler looking for experience, it delivers on so many different levels, really, doesn't it? Historical, and an entertaining guide. You've got quite a sense of humor in there, Graham. You see these, haven't you?
Well, when I was writing it, what I wanted to do was write a book that moved away from La Dolce Vita, but moved to Italy. Italy's paradise. Italy's wonderful. Everything's perfect. You'll fall in love, and everything will be absolutely marvelous. It's paradise on earth. Without sounding, because there are lots of books out there that are very similar to that. And so I
Under the
want.
Tuscan sun, I would imagine. Yes.
I mean, yeah. I'm not belittling
Yeah,
that. It's an
yeah.
excellent story.
For the right market, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
But I suppose I wrote the book that I would like to have read about Italy.
Yeah.
So yes, obviously the entertaining parts and life in Italy can have those elements of La Dolce Vita, because that's why I'm there. That's why I live in Italy, because I love the place.
Yeah.
But equally, there are all sorts of frustrations.
Yeah.
I also wanted to write a book. I hope that, say, for example, you'll be reading it and your partner or somebody else will be there with you, and you keep nudging them and saying, did you know this? Did you know that? Listen to this, listen to that. This happened to us. Did you know that about the history of Italy? Did you know this about the politics of Italy? Did you know this about the racism in Italy? So trying to make it as broad as possible.
Yeah.
So be entertaining, hopefully,
Yeah.
and humorous,
Definitely.
hopefully,
Yeah.
but also give them new snippets of information that they weren't aware of, about Italy itself, its history, its politics, its antagonisms, and
Yeah.
so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I mean, I was concerned when I eventually finished it that one of the criticisms might be, well, what is this book? Is this a holiday read? Is this a history book? Is this a book about politics? What is it? So I thought the criticism might be that, but luckily that's not been the case.
It's
Yeah.
quite, when people are writing books, whether they're getting them self-published or published, we seem to have to be put into boxes. Well, not we, because I haven't written a book, but they seem to have to put into boxes. The publisher likes them to be put into a box. This is your genre. Well, if you self-publish on Amazon, you've got to, well, I'm in this box, I'm in that box, and we have to kind of put a label on it. And I get that, because it's got to be categorized somehow for people to find it. But interestingly enough, when I was talking to an author a few weeks ago, and I said, so what do you think your genre is? And she said, my own. I want to write my own. It's my genre. It's what I want to write about. And I don't really want to be put into a box. And that is exactly what you're saying. If you find it interesting to write about, and other people are too, do you have to be in this little box and be so, identified as this or that? Does it really matter? People are finding you, aren't they?
Yeah. People are coming across. I mean, the hardest thing, as you're aware, is actually promoting what you've written and getting the book out there. Obviously, if you have go down the normal route and you have a publisher, but even then, I've read of others who've got established publishers, but they're still left very much to promote themselves. I mean, again, I went into writing this in the same way as I went into buying the house in Italy. I was totally naive about what I was doing, and once you've actually gone through the creative bit of writing the book, as you're aware, then there's all the laborious stuff about proofreading and editing, and then the task of actually, I suppose, selling yourself and selling the book. And getting the book out to the audience that's out there. That's quite challenging. Yeah,
it is very challenging, and a lot of people, like you say, authors, published authors, to be honest, it tends to depend what it says in their contract. For the new ones, I think there's a lot of text in the contract now that says you have to be responsible for most of your own marketing. So I don't think there's any getting away from that, whether you're a traditional publisher or self-published author. But I think you're doing a really good job. I mean, I followed you on, tell me how you got onto this. I've never heard of them. There is a website, there is an organization called Smart Curators. And it is for emerging artists and writers, and they have open call residencies. And I thought, you've done incredibly well to be selected to go on that with all those people asking you questions to promote your book. How did you hear of them, and how did you get on that?
I didn't. It was Ralph who contacted me out of the blue. At the height of the pandemic, back in, it's really strange how the 2 years of the pandemic, you forget where things happened. It's a confusing time of 2 years. So 2020, January, February 2020. He contacted me, or somewhere around that time, he contacted me and said, would I like to be involved in this online festival of art in its widest, broadest sense, from poetry to art and literature and dance and so forth. And that's when I started thinking, actually, right, people think I'm a real writer. Right, this is fun. Because it's really strange.
Beyond this.
Yeah, it's when somebody says to you, "Oh, you're an author." Somebody says to me,
Graham, you are an author.
You're an author. It sounds
Yes.
me, really? Okay. So, crikey, people are actually taking me seriously. And so it was Ralph who contacted me and said, would I like to be involved in it? And then we set up dates and we had a bit of a practice on Zoom and so forth. And then the event, and then the following year, so this February, he invited me back again to do a similar sort of thing. Yeah. And as you know, as you're aware, then the audience, various people came at different times, asking questions and so forth. Unfortunately, the internet at my house in Italy is not that secure. So, the weather can be hot, or it can be windy, or it can be breezy, or it can be cold. Something will inevitably make the internet go down. And part of the way through that process, that sort of question and answer session, if you've seen it, it does go down at one point. But Ralph was really good because he then patched all that together and then added parts onto that where I'm actually reading from the book. Yeah. Although I think really you need somebody who's got a better voice than me and can put more life into reading. I can write. Me actually reading the book, I don't think gives it the true life it needs. You need somebody who's practiced at doing that.
Perhaps we can tempt you over to Abruzzo, Graham, for a book signing.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, that would be good, yeah.
Which is really nice. You are going to, my book review is going to feature in a new online magazine about Italy called Italy Inside and Out. And I think that will be, I'll have to check with Eleanor, the editor. I think that will be in the next couple of weeks. It's usually mid-month. So that's really nice. Just to, my role in all this is just to, my passions are Italy and books. And if I can help anybody promote anything about Italy, and I know how hard it is to promote books generally, whether you're published or not. And I really enjoyed it. And I want to share with everybody, there's so much in the book. Lovely anecdotes about how you go into the local comune, the council, with your tax code, how the example that you give in the tile shop that is just an absolute disaster, trying to buy some tiles because that's just the most complicated thing ever. But one of the lovely descriptions that you have, and I pulled this one out because I just love this. It is the countless medieval towns and villages, unending fields of sunflowers, sitting under olive trees with neighbours, sipping on red wine, the scent of wild herbs, the glow of fireflies, deep blue skies, and an endless supply of hot, sunny days. Now, take it from me, take it from Graham. That is exactly it. You have said everything about Italy and how people see it and how it is in, what have we got, 2 sentences there, and that is a beautiful, really piece of description that just sums it up, doesn't it, really? That's why we're there, basically, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the beauties of being over there, especially in the summer months, is that being able to sit out with friends, other Italian neighbours or foreign friends and so on, but then go to live concerts, open air concerts in a beautiful style at night. It's just magical. Amazing. I mean, with the temperature as it is now and climate change in the UK, I guess we'll have more opportunities to do that over here as well in the UK. But as it is just now, that's still unpredictable, whereas in Italy, during the summer months, mostly from May through to the end of September, you can more or less guarantee that you're going to have those sorts of evenings. You could be unlucky and you could get a storm, you could get a thunder and lightning and so on, but usually you get those sort of evenings. And I mean, one of the most magical things that only lasts for a few weeks is to walk through from my neighbour's my neighbour's house about a kilometre away, walking back from there at night in the pitch darkness because there's no artificial light, and the fireflies are just hovering around, and it's absolutely magical. It always reminds me of the film Avatar. If those people seen Avatar,
absolutely.
It's that sort of magical silence of this glowing. It's just absolutely magical.
Everywhere. No, yeah, I know.
Absolutely magical.
So everything that life, the house, I mean, it really has exceeded all expectations. I mean, if anybody said, oh, I don't know, should I buy the house? I mean, your answer would be, go for it. Absolutely go for it. Don't live with regret. Just do it, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, go for it. Take the gamble, take the risk. Hopefully it will work out, but equally, throw yourself into local community.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends what you're wanting by buying a house over there. But for me, I wanted to be part of the community. So I went out of my way to actually throw myself into the local community and get to know people and join associations and so on and so forth. Yeah. So those two things: buy the house, take the gamble, but then as much as possible, throw yourself into the local community.
Assimilate into the community. What's next for you regards writing, Graham? I mean, flushed with success.
Yeah.
And also, but before we move on to that bit, the book is available on Amazon. The book is available on so many platforms, isn't it? I've put a review on my website, and I think I've also put one on Goodreads. And I'm really trying to push people to do reviews, because I know how long it takes to produce a piece of writing. And what we really want, well, you really want, the author wants at the end of the day, is just some affirmation. I really enjoyed this book. You know, it's just something to say, you've read it, you've loved it, it's good for you, it's feedback for you, and it also produces more readers, more readership to increase that following. So I'm really pushing people to do reviews.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, that's why sometimes it's that fine balance for me. It's Graham again putting on a review on Facebook or whatever. So sometimes it's like, so what I try to do, I try to be quite sparing in how many times I put that on Facebook or somewhere else, because people might think, it's Graham again trying to promote his book.
You're modest, Graham. You're far too modest.
You're absolutely right about the value of reviews.
Yeah,
are just immeasurable. Absolutely. And so while we're having this chat now, if anybody else may listen to this, if you've read the book and haven't given a review, please give a review, even if it's just a number.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to write anything, but one sentence would be enough.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this book, so on and so forth, and then whatever star rating you want to give it.
Yeah.
So if I could encourage people to do that. Yeah.
Okay. So the next project, Graham, would be?
The next project, I mean, just now the working title, and this again may change before it actually goes to publication. So that's at the proofreading stage, and then it'll go through the editing stage, and then obviously into book format and the front cover and back cover and so forth. So I've finished actually the first draft, and the title just now is Capo of the Cheese.
For anyone that doesn't know, Il Capo is chief.
Yeah, chief or boss. Yeah.
Chief or boss. Yes, Il Capo. Il Capo. So chief of the cheese.
Boss of the cheese. And basically, the next book tells of me actually living in Umbria, and the differences between being a tourist and a temporary visitor to Italy, and actually the experience of living there.
Right.
And where the frustrations and antagonisms can be even more multiplied once you're actually living there. So again,
before, well, while we were buying a property, we devoured these books that people had written about Italy. And what I wanted to see was, after the first book, I wonder how they got on. I
Yeah.
wonder what happened. Did they stay? Did they go? What happened there? So I think it's absolutely necessary that you do this next one and the readers that you've got, the followers that you've got, oh, this is the next one. Let's see if he's still there.
Yeah.
Let's see what happened. Really, did he
And,
get his boiler fixed at the end of the day? Did he manage
yeah.
to tile his bathroom? Readers want to see that. What happened next? It's a wonderful way to to engage with everybody.
And people are asking. People have been asking for over the past year.
Yeah.
If I've posted on Facebook, I've been off somewhere, traveling around Sicily. The comments like, "Stop traveling around and get the next book written," is what one or two have said. So there is a market out there for the next book.
Absolutely.
So the working title just now is Capo of the Cheese.
Okay.
That may change because when it goes through editing, somebody may come up with a much better title. Like, as I say, Lorenzo's Vest was the last 2 weeks before it went to publication, so it may change. But basically, it's about my life in Italy as a resident, as an immigrant living over there. The first book, as you know, had a couple of chapters about the history of Italy. This one looks at the history of the mafia.
Oh,
So there are a
right.
couple of chapters about the history of the mafia,
Okay.
where the mafia came from, living in Italy with the mafia, because the two chapters could easily paint this bloodthirsty country where it's dangerous to live. So it's that fine balance of telling the story of the mafia, its history, and it is pretty gruesome, its history, and still potentially, but equally,
it's an integral part of Italian history, and
absolutely,
still is,
absolutely.
still is.
But the reality is, even though you've got the mafia that's entwined into Italy, Italy is a relatively safe country to live. Probably one of the safest, certainly in Europe, and compared to the States, for example, it's an incredibly safe country to live. So it's trying to merge that in, but not terrify people so they never actually want to go to Italy.
I think I do remember somebody saying to us once, well, is it safe to go to Sicily with all the mafia about? And the point that we made was that the mafia would never be picking on tourists. Tourists are not their target markets. Not at all. It would be safe to go because if the mafia are going to go for anyone, it's probably the people that have the shops so that they can get their money and their rent money. It's not in their interest, so they want tourists to come and spend money. They would not be picking on tourists at all. And I'm sure you agree with me.
Absolutely. So there's the two, as I said, the two chapters are about the history of the mafia, where it came from, and why Italy, but also then trying to reassure people that, what you've just said is the reality. That unless you deliberately want to go out and seek out the mafia, or you set up some business in some of the areas that they are operating in, then you will have no contact with the mafia. It won't interfere with your life. So there's obviously the anecdotes about my life there, hopefully amusing again, and things that are lost in translation and messed up and so on and so forth. And my fantastic Italian neighbours and friends that I've made over the years. Those two chapters about the mafia. And I also felt that really you couldn't write a book about the last 6 years without writing about the politics that happened internationally and in Italy, and the shift to the right and the shift towards more sort of nationalism within politics. So that first came about because of Brexit and the inevitable knock-on effects of Brexit for anybody, any Brit intending to live in Italy or anywhere in Europe, and the shift to the right in politics in the UK, but equally the shift to the right of politics in Italy with Salvini and Meloni and still Berlusconi, who just will not die and leave this earth. They're still around.
There's just more Botox and more filler going in.
So there's so I covered that. So the modern shift in nationalism and the right-wing politics, and then inevitably you can't talk about nationalism and Brexit and Italy, politics in Italy without the impact of Trump and America. And just as I think I finished the book, then Putin decides to invade Ukraine.
So yeah.
So I mean, he's probably the epitome of narcissistic nationalism. So I had to say something. It's not much, but I had to say something at that the latter stages of me talking about nationalism, the invasion of the Ukraine by Putin. So there's that, and then of course the other thing I couldn't leave out, because of its impact over the past 2 years, is the impact of COVID. On mainly it's about Italy, but also about COVID, how it impacted on myself. I was sort of isolated over here in the UK for 6 months because I couldn't get back to Italy at the time of lockdown. So that's within the book as well.
Wow.
So it's a mixture of hopefully light-hearted anecdotes, but equally serious stuff about the politics, about the mafia, and so on and so forth. So it's a mixture again of all those.
Wonderful. That's
trying to present the reality of what life is like living in Italy. But equally, now and again, I have to be honest, I leave Italy and I go elsewhere. So there's bits about when I have been out of Italy and other places I've visited, that have fed into my life over there. Yeah.
It's a bit Eric Newby in a way, isn't it, really? I mean, Eric Newby started off as, I mean, he was a journalist, but you know, when he started writing about buying a house in Italy and all of those adventures, again, you know, he talked about all those things that kind of happened to him, about the politics, about what was going on. And it's hugely fascinating, absolutely hugely, that you've got this personal life amongst, this is what's, you know, the time as well, this is what's going on in the world and the impact it has. It sounds a great read, it really does. Can I ask you a couple of off-the-cuff questions about your life as an author?
Okay.
Right. What does literary success mean to you? Money, fame, or both?
Crikey. I'm not sure it's either of those, really. I mean, yes, ideally, I mean, the ideal would be, obviously, if some publisher grabbed hold of this and then eventually it was made into a film and then there's all the merchandising and all the rest of it, that'd be fantastic. I doubt if that will ever occur, and that's not why I wrote the book. I wrote the book because I wanted to write something that I would have picked up and wanted to read.
Right.
Basically, that's why I wrote it.
To share your experience.
To share my experiences, but equally, if I'd not written it and somebody else had, I would be giving it, this sounds really pompous and big-headed, but I would be giving it 5 stars because it's given me everything I want about Italy, and not just everything's paradise in Italy. It's given me all sorts of information that I wasn't aware of about Italy. So that's why I wrote it. If money comes from that, that would be fantastic. Fame, I'm not too bothered about the fame part of it, but it's equal I wouldn't shy away from either. But it was about just getting the book out there, and the feedback has been far, far better than I could have ever expected, because it's a total unknown. It's almost like having a child and releasing that child into the world, and hopefully that child's appreciated and that child's successful and that child succeeds and so forth. And for me, it's a little bit like, I'm supposed any author who writes something, it's a bit, that's that scary bit of actually throwing it out there and waiting for the comeback, waiting for the feedback.
Well, there's no right answer on this. There's no right answer. Does writing energize or exhaust you?
I'm one of those people. So I know some people have a very regimented way of writing, and they have so many hours each day when they sit down at the computer.
Barbara Cartland, didn't she used to do about 5 hours before 11 o'clock in the morning?
Something like that. I'm certainly not regimented. Basically, I write when I feel like writing. So I may go 2 or 3 weeks where I don't actually sit down and write anything. And then when I do sit down and start writing, then I'm sort of just totally engaged and engrossed with writing. So I may start at 8 o'clock in the morning with the intention of just sitting there for a few hours, and suddenly it's 8 o'clock at night because the ideas are flowing and the words and so on, and you change things around. Just for me to sit down and think, right, I'm going to do it now, I just know that I will be sat there for 2 hours doing nothing.
So it's
just not,
as the thoughts go.
It's just not there. Yeah.
Do you hide any secrets in your books that only a few people who know you would find?
That's an interesting one. No, I don't think so.
No?
It's an interesting.
You're an open book, Graham.
Yeah, it's an because the person who actually is going through and going through the proofreading, I actually know him as his close friend, Mark Stafford, and he says when he's reading my rough draft, he reads it with my voice. He can hear my voice
Right.
when he's actually reading it. But hidden secrets. No, I mean it'd be quite interesting when people read the second book because yeah, I'm quite open about a particular relationship that I've had. So that will be interesting how people see that.
Okay.
Even more interesting, although I've changed names, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
If the person at some point in the future reads the book, that would be interesting. Yeah.
Yes,
But
it will. Okay. What else was I gonna? Oh yes, an ebook. Will we get an ebook on Lorenzo? Maybe an audio in the future? Is that a route that you
an ebook definitely. Audio, I'd not really thought about. Yeah, I mean, if you, I mean, you've spoken to far more authors than I have, and given lots of reviews about various authors. So you're probably more knowledgeable than me about the saleability of an audiobook. Yeah, but it's not really something. The ebook, yes, definitely.
Ebook, definitely. The market for audiobooks is huge and growing by the day.
Okay.
You know, so just something, you know, if you ever like the idea, it's quite a nice idea. What? Oh yes, your favorite childhood book and why?
My favorite childhood book, crikey. I suppose it may be the first one I think I remember reading to myself, and that was Black Beauty.
Okay.
Why? Because as a child, I grew up in the industrial area of South Yorkshire, and I suppose I always had as a child and as an adult as well the notion that I wanted to enjoy more of a country life out in the countryside with animals, with so on, not necessarily horses, but so I would say Black Beauty because of the. I'm trying to think of the old story. I can't really think of the story now, but because it was set in a rural setting,
Right.
which is something I always almost pine for. I suppose that's why I'm in Italy now.
I was just going to say, that's funny. You're there.
Growing up in industrial South Yorkshire, as you're aware from.
You've achieved it, Graham.
As you're aware, I'm half German, and my father came from a very rural area of Germany.
Right.
Forests and small villages and so on and so forth. So we would spend every second year we would go out to Germany for 2 or 3 weeks, 2 weeks, and I just loved it there and could never understand as a child why my parents had not lived there.
No.
And chose to live in industrial South Yorkshire. So it was like, both me and my sister would ask over and over again why, and there are all sorts of reasons why. But so I suppose I always had this draw to this more country life and Black Beauty, yeah, I sort of
nice.
remember it in that sort of way, really. Yeah,
that's so nice. Have you got a dedicated website? I know I just keep seeing things all over.
I haven't. No, I haven't.
And I keep thinking, where's the website? Because when you Google your name and Lorenzo's Fest, you just get lists and lists of NetGalley and Goodreads and all these books that it's on. And I was going to say, if you have got a dedicated website, if you haven't, you should have one, basically.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, what my plan was once the second book's out to then put the website together, because then I've got more than just Lorenzo's Vest.
Yeah.
And I can have that there and other things.
Yeah.
I mean, the next project after Cap of the Cheese is to work with, although I've not spoken to him yet, but I'm sure he'll be fine with it, to work with a graphic designer and basically put together a pictorial book of Cumbria with his support. And so hopefully people will buy Lorenzo's Vest, people will buy Cap of the Cheese, and then to support that, the places I've spoken about, they can actually see the photographs of Orvieto, Toddy, Trevi,
Mm,
and so on.
how lovely.
There's one or two people who said, why are there no photographs in the book, Graham? There's
Yeah,
two answers.
it can't be all things
No.
to all people, can it
No.
really?
And there are
You know,
two answers to that.
if you were going to go down any route, I'd maybe suggest having it in Italian, because I'm sure that the people that you're writing about who have no idea, or maybe they have, that they're in the book and they're mentioned. Um, Something that came across my path not so long ago, having a book by somebody American or English that's translated in Italian suddenly makes it so much more inclusive, because the Italians are really keen to read these. And I'm seeing that the published authors are now having their own books. These are historical fictions or thrillers, mysteries. Those books are now being published in Italian, ready for the Italian market. So there is a very hungry market out there in Italy of Italians for English books.
I mean, most certainly my closest friends and Italian neighbours want it to be translated
I'm
into
sure
Italian
they do.
because they know it's about them. It's quite amusing because sometimes,
yeah, I'm sure they do.
sometimes by pure accident, I might refer to one of them by the name I've given them in the book. And
oh, yeah.
so, yeah, so sometimes I do make that
That's your
mistake.
pseudonym. Don't worry about it.
And
yeah.
most certainly
Well, who
Aldo.
knows? Yeah.
Aldo in the book is my closest Italian
Yeah.
neighbour. His real name's Honorio, but
Right.
even some of his family sometimes refer to him now as Aldo now and again.
well,
Because
that's you, Graham. You should be speaking Italian by now, fluently.
I should be. I should be.
yes.
Yeah.
And maybe get it into. There's so many wonderful projects. There's so many ways that you can go down now and explore. And now that you're off the starting post, I think, the world is your oyster. It really is. You've got a really great following there.
I mean, the three or four things that you've mentioned is to, one, the audiobook and the ebook, definitely, the audiobook probably, and also get it translated into Italian and probably Dutch, because there are just so many Dutch visitors. For some reason, Umbria seems to attract Dutch visitors in larger numbers than any other foreigners. I mean, there are other foreigners around, but it seems to be Dutch visitors who seem to be there in the greatest numbers. So that's probably one of the routes I'm going to go down.
You see, the thing is, when you're an author and you start with the marketing, you don't really feel that you've got time to write. You got to kind of come to you've come to a straight edge. Now you've got some time to marketing, but ideally you want to just keep up the momentum, really. Well, when this book is ready, please send me a copy.
Absolutely will do.
And we'll get it out there in any which way that we can. I mean, I'm building up my social media following, as you can see, and I also, TikTok, I just do a little thing of each book, a few sentences with a bit of music, so that people just get an idea of what a book's about. And I'm amazed how that's taking off. It's there are so many avenues that we're still to explore, aren't we, as to getting the books out there. But I really wish you success with it.
Thank you.
And I hope we see you in Abruzzo for a book signing.
No, absolutely, yes. I mean, once I'll be back in Umbria the beginning of September. So
when this book is ready, it would be nice maybe in the spring for you to come out then, so that you've got both books. And hey, I'm a published author. You are, Graham, you are there. You've made it.
It's funny because a few months ago I was obviously over in Italy having a meal somewhere, and there were some Americans on another table, and for some reason, can't remember how, but we got chatting. And they were tourists to the in Southern Umbria, restaurant, and they asked me where I lived in Umbria and so on and so forth. I lived there, and obviously, inevitably, I took the opportunity to try and
sell them a book.
So, by the way, I've written a book about
good for
Umbria.
you. Good.
And they
you.
said,
look, I've got 3 in my bag here.
And they said, well, I'll not try and mimic an American accent and offend all the Americans that I know. But they said, oh, that's awesome, because most things are awesome to and they said, oh, you're an author. Well, yeah, I suppose, yes, I'm an author. But it's still strange to be given that title.
Really. You deserve it. You really do. So don't play that down, for goodness sake. Don't play that down. You're an author. You're a published author. Anyway, on that note, Graham, lovely to talk to you. I hope our paths cross again soon with the next book and book signings and whatever.
I'm sure they will. I mean,
what you're up to now and then. So
when I'm back in Umbria, if we get a chance, either I can pop down to see you, or you pop over to
absolutely,
we'll drink together, and yeah, and some more chat about our lives over there, and writing, publishing, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, wonderful.
But thank you for this opportunity.
Well, like I say, the magazine will be coming out soon. Italy Inside and Out, new online magazine. So we'll put it in there and do what we can. So all the best, and
thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Speak to you soon. Ciao, ciao. Thanks. Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.